Welcome back, everyone. Episode 13. We have Let's Make Cocktails with Lucas Assis. Lucas, thank you for being on. We greatly appreciate your time and everything. For those that don't know you, that listen to our podcast, can you just give us a little bit of bio about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for all that. This is awesome. A little bit about me. Kind of in a nutshell, I make a lot of videos about agave spirits in general, mostly tequila, but of course, my love is mezcal as well. So I talk a lot about mezcal. I love talking and sharing the stories of who makes these spirits, the families and the people involved, the culture behind the spirits and where they're made. And I'm also a bartender, so I bartended in LA for about 12 years. And long story short, the pandemic happened, and I was kind of a job like every bartender in the world. And I decided to try to get my creative outlet into social media. So I started selling cocktails to go right in those first 2 months of the pandemic, and that's how I started really posting content. And from then on, it kind of just evolved into what it is today, which is still always a trip to me to even say it, that this is my full-time job. So I get to work with different brands in the cocktail side of things, so doing events, activations, recipes, consulting in that way. But I work with a lot of promotion of different brands as well. And that's why, I get to go down to Jalisco and other parts of Mexico so often to capture content for different brands. And also my wife's family is from Mexico, from Michoacan and Zacatecas. So we also go down to Michoacan a lot to stay with her family, which also comes in with amazing mezcales, some charanda as well, and a great bar scene as well. So it's kind of like a little overview of what I do.
Nice. And what inspired you? I know the pandemic was part of it, but what inspired you to Let's Make Cocktails? To make Let's Make Cocktails.
So really, it was one of those things that just kind of evolved. Of course, bartending for 12 years, I fell in love with the history and the story. So I've always wanted to see not just the recipes of the cocktails, but who made that cocktail and why and what hotel and those kinds of things. So when I was saying, during the pandemic, started selling cocktails to go, it was really like a word of mouth thing where I would put out a cocktail menu every Tuesday, and then you could order the day before, and I'll deliver the cocktails somewhere in LA for the first 3-4 months of the pandemic. And that was fun. It kept me busy, kept me creative. It kept me making different menus every week. And then it was kind of one of those things that, things started to open, and I didn't want to get in trouble. So I did a hard call and I said, hey guys, not delivering cocktails anymore. This has been fun, but we can't keep going. And then people started asking me, okay, then teach us how to make those cocktails. So then that's when I really did the switch into, instead of selling the cocktails, breaking down the history and the stories and the recipes and posting content online about that. So it was that transition from selling it to now teaching people how to make them.
So I am so excited that you're here. Hi, Lucas. I'm Ashton. So you're the guy that opened my eyes to additive-free tequila. So my story. So I was still in law enforcement back in the day. I retired about almost 2.5 years ago, okay. But I was right around that pandemic time too. So I was down the bourbon rabbit hole.
Okay.
And I found myself, I really enjoy alcohol. It's my favorite Arabic word. And so, yeah, it's I love all of it. But I found as I've gotten older in my life, I really struggle with metabolizing it and just, feeling like garbage the next day. And because I really also was trying to maintain, a high level of physical fitness working in law enforcement. I was kind of always tried to hold myself to a standard of look, I'm, if you're going to be tip of the spear, you got to kind of put in the hours in the gym and eat healthy and do all that stuff. So I would find myself drinking bourbon, and then I would find myself it just didn't sit well with me. And I started doing research on it, and I found all kinds of different things that people were dealing with. Mm-hmm. And then the consensus across the board was maybe try tequila. And so I thought, you know what, let's try that, because I used to love tequila back when I was in college. Mm-hmm. And I remember drinking when Patron was pretty, new on the scene. and was being made, pretty well back in the early days of tequila, of that, kind of fancy club tequila.
Right.
So long story short, I started switching over to tequilas, and I'm like, I thought I knew what I was talking about. I'm drinking, I won't throw out any names, but today I wouldn't give this to my, I wouldn't give it to an enemy, like I'm not giving you any of this stuff. And so one day I remember I'm on Instagram and I'm scrolling through, and I saw you had a reel or a post. I think it was a reel. And you started talking about additives, and I'm like, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, because the one thing I've always been about me is like, I've always prided myself in having kind of like insider information, inside knowledge. I worked in the intelligence unit in the police department, so I was like, I know secrets that most people don't know. I know how the sausage gets made, and so when you were talking about additives in tequila, I was like, I have been finagled. I have been, the wool has been pulled over my eyes by these multinational conglomerates. How dare they? And so I literally followed you, and I remember like one day I was like sitting at home, and I think I spent 2 hours watching all your stuff.
That's awesome.
And then I started like Googling or just searching out additive free. So you make this list on your Instagram page of your recommended additive free tequilas. I just want you to know, and I always give a shout out, this is not my list, this is your list, but when people will message me, is this a good tequila? I'm like, no. And I don't have time, like I'm in a meeting or I'm doing something, I'm like, I just have it screen captured, it's in my heart, it's in my like love liked photos. And I'm like, boom, here, just go anything on this list. Doesn't matter how much you're willing to spend, sip, mix, savor, whatever you want to do, but anything on this list works. So shout out to you. Awesome. I'm so happy to be able to meet you tonight.
That's so awesome to hear, man. I really appreciate that. That's pretty cool. And that's what it's all about, you know what I mean? And we all start somewhere. I started drinking, Don Julio and all those other brands in the beginning too, and then evolved to that. And I kind of like similar too. My first like love into spirits was whiskey. So the bar that I was working at the time, this is 6-7 years ago. It was during that boom of bourbon in LA. So every bar was like all about the bourbons and stuff. And eventually started going into tequila as well. So I feel like we're getting to see that more and more. People that are really into bourbon, into whiskey, and they're like graduating into tequila.
Who opened your eyes to the additive free movement?
So it was the chef that I used to work with, which his name is Sean Yance. So again, the restaurant that I was working at was all about bourbon, right? We had one of the best bourbon lists in the country. We were one of the first restaurants to bring in Japanese whiskey into LA. So I really was like diving deep into whiskey. And then as LA started to do this like gradual shift into agave spirits, again, it's like 6 years ago. This is when you started seeing restaurants like Madre and Gracias Madre here. The restaurant that I worked at also started to do a little bit of that shift. So they hired this guy called Sean Yance from Denver. And I remember the CEO of the company telling me like, Lucas, and this is when like I was starting to really get into tequila. I was starting to go down with my now wife into Mexico and experiencing the tequila with her family there. And granted, not great tequila, but really getting into that, like how to make it and the process and all that. So then when Sean came in, the CEO told me, if you want to learn about mezcal or tequila, you got to talk to this guy. He's like one of the most knowledgeable guys in the country right now. So I become this sponge around him. And he's like taking me to tastings and, I'm asking questions. And he was really the one that started telling me and teaching me like, hey, this is how it's supposed to be. These are what the ingredients should be. These are what the additives are. And he's really close friends with all the guys at Fortaleza. So he's also a biker guy. So he's always, riding Harleys with Guillermo Salza and all the guys from Fortaleza. So back in 2018, he put together, now I was going to Mexico already for one of my wife's best friend and her wedding. And it was like maybe 2 hours away from Tequila. So Sean was like, if you're going there, you have to go visit Fortaleza. So I go to Fortaleza and I show up. This is before Fortaleza is what it is today, like how hard it is to find and, the cult following that it has. So I go up to this little tiny distillery and I see how it's being made. And I remember like something shifting in me thinking like, I'm going to get obsessed with this. Like to see the art form that goes behind making the spirit, like I know myself. So I'm going to get obsessed with this. And that's why I talk about Fortaleza too. Like now I'm friends with these guys and they're awesome. And it's an amazing tequila, of course. But for me, it's more than just that. It's like a sentimental value as well. That it was the first tequila that showed me what tequila is supposed to be, and that was when then I just like really got into it and started researching and reading and going down to Mexico and got to go down to Oaxaca because of Sean too, who was good friends with. He's still good friends with Del Maguey people. So and then it's funny because like now we're gonna do a tasting together in October in Denver, and it's gonna be like this full circle, of like the guy that showed me everything that we're gonna host a tasting in Denver, which I'm super excited about.
That's good. You sounded like a real, true drug addict there. It's like the first time I tried it, I was like, I'm never doing nothing else but this one. This is it from here on out, son. Heroin it is.
I need to know made.
So with me, and after watching your content, doing all that stuff, what makes me the happiest about your content is the early arguments between the three of us were always around the fact that I don't like it neat, right? I always put my tequila in cocktails. And I spent a year of these two kicking me in the nuts, saying if I don't drink it neat, I shouldn't be drinking it. And now we come to hear that the person that brought them on came into the system by making drinks and passing them out. I just want to thank you for making Ash look stupid. That's all I
don't know. Listen, I make the cocktails, but if I'm drinking, it's always neat,
Yeah, I don't care. You said you make the cocktails. Thank you for making Ash look stupid.
It's funny, Lucas, because Matt and I and Jay, we've been to Fortaleza, and Matt and I were down there the last time in March.
Summer. No,
yes,
it was during Jay's football season. It had to be April, May. Something like that.
Okay, so a couple months ago, and we actually got to meet Guillermo.
Nice.
And so it was just such an honor to go. You go to that distillery, and so if for those of you who are listening and watching, we always talk about Fortaleza as kind of this ultimate unicorn tequila, and if you can find it, I refuse to spend anything but MSRP. Right. I have these like strict rules, but I have my sources in the community. Then I get calls once in a while like, hey, we got a bottle in.
Right.
And I really tell people what I'm really trying to get. I've got this generation now in my life of they're kind of the older boomers. Maybe my what would have been my parents, or maybe a little bit younger than my parents, but not quite Gen Xers. Mm-hmm. And it's like they love tequila too. They were I had a couple friends that came to the tasting here this last Saturday. They're a little bit older. They're in that getting into retirement now age. And they want to go so bad, and I'm trying to talk them into going to see this, what is really this heaven on earth magical place, which is Fortaleza.
Right.
And they will just email them, and they'll come on in. We just need your name and what time you're going to be here.
Mm-hmm. And
you see this magic, you see this process where there's no shortcuts, there's no fake, there's no additives, there's just Mexico.
Right.
You just have this amazing process. And I messaged Guillermo on the gram shortly after. I said, don't change a thing. I mean, look, if you expand production, fine, but just expand it to hone it. Don't make it anything other than what you have magic here.
Right.
And you walk right around the corner to El Tequilano, and okay, they're using the steam, they're steaming it. No big deal. It's still good tequila, but
yeah.
And then it's just like I'm trying to get people like that, a little bit older,
right,
to like, and they're like, Mexico's dangerous. I'm like, it's no more. I feel more safer in Guadalajara than I do. Like, we went to the Walmart in Guadalajara. I'm like, it's so nice. It's like people are dressed up in their Sunday best.
Guadalajara is Chicago. In the suburbs out of suburbs. It's like you're being in America.
And I'm sure, every part of a place on earth has its problems, but
sure.
I'm trying to get that older generation to understand. Like, my godfather is an old actor. He's 82 years old. He's a very famous actor. His name's Michael Delano. Okay. He was drinking garbage tequila, and I would be like, yeah, I'm getting into tequila. And I remember a couple of years ago when you could still go into a liquor store and buy Fortaleza. It wasn't quite cult. It hadn't quite hit that mark yet.
Right.
And it was $55 a bottle. I remember drinking it with him, and he doesn't care. He's like, he's trying to do shots. I'm like, no, slow down. Let's sip this, But we got I'm like, okay, I can say I checked that box. Like, I had a bottle of Fortaleza with my godfather, this famous actor who's been in all these movies and all these shows. It's just, I'm trying to get that older generation to go and appreciate it too.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, like, you want to understand why Fortaleza is hard to find? Just go to the distillery if you can. Once you see that the size of the stills, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Got it. This is why it's hard to find, because a lot of people want it and the stills are tiny, Yeah.
And that's it's actually as far as it goes, it's the process
Right.
that we fall in love with Fortaleza. Because, and the three of us sat around here and did it one time. We'll ask you the same thing now.
Yeah.
If you were on an island and you had to drink the same tequila every day for the rest of your life, it wouldn't be Fortaleza for me, even though it's what I fell in love with. It's the process. It's the place. It's the best on earth. But I would still take a different tequila. So, Lucas, you're on an island. You got to drink the same drink one every day. What bottle are you taking?
That's tough. That's yeah, putting me in the spot. I get like Fortaleza for me. It has a sentimental value, but if I absolutely had to choose, it might be that Cosecha 2018 that I see over there. It might be the Cascawin Taona Blanco, or the Siembra Valles Ancestral. One of those three. Or the
So and that's the thing. And it was kind of like that for all three of us. It's where Fortaleza is where it all begins. It's where pictures that are hanging in all of my house are from, all Fortaleza. But if it came down to it, I'm taking Don Fulano Still Strength or a nice. And that's just what I'm taking.
I mean, I have a 4 foot by 4 foot vinyl print.
Yeah.
From the lookout point of Fortaleza on my walk-in wall.
That's
that I'm
cool.
encasing. I'm framing it in brick and moss and everything. So,
and what are you taking?
What am I taking
on the island?
What am I taking on the
What
island?
are you taking on the island?
Like Lucas said, like it's hard to pick.
Well, that's why we're doing it, because it's hard. Because
honestly, Fuente Seca would be one that I would take. I would take G4, of course. Honestly, like I'm a huge Vivo fan. Like I love the funkiness to the Vivo. I mean, those would probably be, my top three.
Yeah. So for you, Lucas, what's next? So you've evolved from delivering drinks to now expanding it as to where you are now. What's your next step in this arena of additive-free tequila? Like where do you see yourself moving?
Dude, right now, to be honest, I'm kind of enjoying the process and seeing where it takes me. As far as like in the industry, I think there's so much stuff happening in the industry, good and bad, that I love what I do. This is an awesome job, so I'm really enjoying the time right now and getting to meet these people, getting to go down to Mexico, getting to learn more and more. One of the reasons why I just really fell in love with agave is because there's no mastering it, there's no being an expert. It's always different. I was in Durango this weekend, and I went to Three Vinatas, and I learned something new at those Three Vinatas that I hadn't seen before. So like those kinds of things for me is like what really I'm passionate about. And so I don't know, it might be something more. I don't have plans at all to like have my own brand or anything like that, but I enjoy doing private picks, and I try to cap that at maybe 2-3 a year, if that, because I don't want to oversaturate that either. So yeah, I don't know. It is something that I'm just enjoying the time and seeing where it takes me.
And as far as the industry is going, how do you see the growth of the additive free? We've had this discussion here a million times on the growth of the industry and us wanting to see more additive free selections when we're out in bars and restaurants and nightlives. And I like it where it is. I want it to be this little small niche. And I don't see the opportunity for a significant amount of growth, although I can buy G4 at Costco now. Do you see room for a significant amount of growth in this particular additive-free industry as far as moving it out to the mainstream?
It's a great question. Look, I think once upon a time, additive-free or like even confirmed additive-free by Tequila Matchmaker was kind of a stamp of quality. Right? If it was that, you knew it was going to be a good product. I think that's completely changed. I've had a lot of additive-free tequilas, and I'm like, maybe you should put additives. So there's definitely room for growth. You know, even like we just see it today, right? Tequila Matchmaker just confirmed that Weber Ranch vodka as additive free. So it's not even a tequila, but it is additive free. It's made out of agave. I'm not sure how the process is or anything like that, but you see that there is room for growth, you know, and I think there is. And I think we're going to see it more and more. I think, you know, in the beginning, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the big brands were looking at this movement as like, oh, it's just a bunch of nerds online. This is not going to grow. And now we're seeing that it is. It's hurting the big brands. It's hurting the mega international conglomerates. And they're seeing it, and they're seeing if there's way for them either to buy into it, make brands that are additive free, and capitalize on that. So there's room for growth. I don't know if there's room for quality. And it scares me into what it will do to the agave. At first, I think we're all talking about shortage of agave, and there will be an agave shortage. And now we see that there is actually a surplus of agave that we're not going to be able to use. So if then we have these, you know, brands that are boasting about selling 1 million cases, going the additive free route, then what would happen to the agave? So it's just, it's nerve wracking, you know, to what will happen to the industry. So there is room for growth. I don't know if there's room for quality.
Yeah. And I find it interesting. I go into some of the, especially the bigger box liquor stores here in Las Vegas, and they just, you know, the store worker puts a little sticky note and says additive free.
Right.
And I'm like, come on, you know, like, so I feel like this is like
made by Pepsi, man.
It's like it's made by a certain celebrity who's like, all right. You know, and I'm like, I don't want to throw names under the bus, but it's like, okay, anyone can write and say additive free. And I kind of feel like it'll just be the next phase of the big multinational conglomerates is just say, yeah, it's additive free.
Yeah, I've seen screenshots that people sent me that, like yesterday, of a store online selling Casa Dragones, and it had an additive free label next to it. And that was just a blatant lie. Like, you know, everybody knows that there's additives in that.
It's one of the worst offenders.
Exactly. So that is a scary part of the industry for me now, especially with everything that happened with Tequila Matchmaker and the CRT cracking down on that. But they can't crack down on these stores doing those things. So it's just going to become my fear that this is going to become even more about misinformation than that people are just going to get tired of it, because now how can you really tell? At first we had Tequila Matchmaker. Now there's stores claiming that there are. And how are they different than Tequila Matchmaker in the sense of they can do what they want? You know what I mean? And who can we?
And so that was my follow-up question. Then we'll go to that one, man. I'm sorry. My follow-up question is, in looking back at what happened with Tequila Matchmaker, and in looking back at finding out that the larger corporations are starting to recognize now, what do you think their response is going to be, seeing what happened to Tequila Match? I mean, how do you see? And we had this discussion months ago. The big guys are not going to approve of taking a 14% loss in production. They're not in the business of losing money.
Right.
And we had this discussion and we talked about it. And sure as shit, a month later, Matchmaker gets rated. I mean, what do you see the response of the big corporation knowing that you got this 14% cut?
I think, you know, it's funny, man, because I was actually having this conversation this weekend too. Even like people like us that care this much about tequila, we're such a small part of the market. You know what I mean? That it doesn't, like, sure, we can impact a little here and there, but when you're talking about a brand selling 4 million cases or whatever, like, we're not really hurting that, you know, that much. But we are hurting enough for the brands to start paying attention and for Tequila Matchmaker to get rated. Because if it was nothing, then they'll just do what they kept doing, right? So I think there still might be some intimidation going on into that level. I think there also might be just a flood of misinformation, like the things that are happening with Total Wine and what they're claiming that it's additive free and what's not. You know, there's the new regulatory council that might start happening in Mexico too, which I love to see. But then, like, can we trust that one? You know? So I don't know. It's just a big unknown, I think, right now into this additive free alliance or additive free market that I'm so passionate about. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if people are going to get tired of it. You know what I mean? I don't know if people are just going to, it's just going to be kind of more of like us, and the big brands kind of know that that's happening. They're just going to wait it out. So it's it's a scary, I guess, place that I think additive-free tequila is at right now.
Well, see, that was my question leading into what are your thoughts on the new regulatory entity within the CRT for additive free brands, or however they plan on spinning it, or moving it forward.
Right. Look, I'm all for it. I don't think anybody should be a monopoly. The CRT is a monopoly, right? Like, I think one of the things that got they got so many people sharing misinformation when the whole tequila matchmaker rate happened is everybody saying, the CRT, the CRT is the governing body of tequila, or the CRT is Mexico's government entity of tequila that regulates tequila. It's a private company. It has nothing to do with the government. It's a private company for profit that gets paid per bottle, right? So if a company that gets paid per bottle has one tequila brand that makes 300,000 liters a day, and then a brand that makes 300,000 liters a year, like Fortaleza does, of course they're going to favor the one that has the 300,000 liters a day. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. If Cuervo gets out of the CRT is bankrupt tomorrow. They can't survive without Cuervo.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
So all Cuervo needs to do is like, hey, I think we're thinking about leaving if you don't do this, right? And then they go and have to put their tailor branded legs and go do it. So we saw this happening with Mezcal. Mezcal first was all the CRM, right? Now we have Comercam, which is another regulatory council too. And that came with its own side of drama as well. But I think this is a great thing. If it's actually a legit thing, and I think it can shake things up a little bit, this is exactly what we need. We don't need a monopoly. We need two companies that can do this. And then we'll see. What if they have the same stance with additive free that the CRT does? We don't know exactly what's going to happen, right? But I'm all for more than just one regulatory council.
Well, now, and just to understand it a little bit better, is it a secondary company that is being formed by the CRT, or is it an individual company?
As far as I know, it's an individual company.
Okay.
I've heard nothing but rumors of like, what if this is the CRT, starting this new one so they can get more credibility. I don't know. I really hope that's not the case. I don't think it's the case. And I really like to think that this is a separate company that's coming in and is going to regulate tequila as well.
Do you think Tequila Matchmaker will ever be back in the Guadalajara area?
As far as like their like tasting rooms and stuff like that?
Yeah.
For their own sake, I hope not. Not anytime soon. Yeah.
Do you think the new president will, any insights into the new president, the lady who just got elected?
I think, I think she, there's things that I like about her. There's things that raise some questions. And I don't think I'm that well versed as either to give my opinion.
Right.
All I know is that this new regulatory company, they've been wanting to start like for months. It's been on the Supreme Court of Mexico for months. But because it was an election year, it's the same thing that would happen here, right? They weren't voting on new things until they saw who won the election. So I think now that the election did happen, then now we're going to see more of a movement if it's going to get approved or not, which I really hope it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And now, so with all the travels that you do for different brands and what you and your wife do, are there any security precautions that you take both on travel with the brands as opposed to travel with your wife? Is there any difference, or do you kind of do the same stuff?
No, I mean, I do the same stuff, but like, I also got to say that because of my wife, I'm so familiar with Mexico, right? So I've been going to Mexico way before this was my job, and I was going there to see tequila. And is there shit in Mexico? Of course, but there's shit like that in the U.S. as well. You know what I mean? I tell people all the time, look, if you look for it, you're gonna find it super easily. You are, but if you don't, you're not. You know what I mean? Just keep away from that shit, and just, especially if you're in Jalisco, which is like such a touristic, a state that relies on tourism, especially agave tourism. It's safe. You know what I mean? Just don't be dumb. That's kind of what I tell everybody. Just don't be dumb. Don't go out in the middle of a place that you don't know at 4:00 in the morning, being drunk, calling attention to yourself. Just like I would say the same thing for people that come to LA. You know what I mean? Like there's places in LA that I don't go to, just like there's places in Guadalajara that I don't go to either. And
Sure.
I know that it's not, and I say that in the sense of a privilege that I understand how things work in Mexico. You know what I mean? And I'm more familiar with that stuff. But I got to tell you, man, I've been traveling to Mexico extensively for 3 years now. I've never seen anything. I have never felt unsafe. I've heard stories, and the stories that I heard is because people are being stupid. You know?
And that's the same thing we tell our kids, right? You wake up every day and you tell your kids, "Hey, man, just don't do dumb shit."
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that's it. Just don't do dumb shit.
Yeah.
I mean, just a lot of the times you get in trouble and stuff happens, you look back and say, "Oh, I was doing dumb shit."
Exactly.
And then, that's what does it.
Right.
And it kind of circles back to like, what I'm trying to get the older generation. Maybe they watch, too much certain news channels and they think, it's all danger and risky and brown people scary. And I'm like,
Right.
go to Mexico. I promise. Like I always say, like the funny joke is like, I have to drive anywhere in Las Vegas. And I'm always like, all right, got my gun, press check it, check, boom, got it, tourniquet, got my, situational awareness. All right, we're going to Target.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's like, and so then we'll go to the airport. And I'm like, oh, crazy driver. Oh my gosh, get through TSA, get on the plane. And as soon as I get on a Mexican bound plane with Hispanic people, I'm like at ease. They're like, hola, ¿cómo está? I'm like, hi, how are you? I have 2 tequilas, please. And then we land in Guadalajara. We get through customs. All right, I'm all, yeah, sure. Okay, a little nerve wracking, but we walk out. We get in the car, the bus, the whatever. And I'm like, I don't have to have a gun on me. It's just, I'm like, I feel so relieved. And it's like, yeah, don't do stupid things. Now, yeah, it's like, okay, obviously you have to have situational awareness when you're in Mexico or if you're in any country for that matter, anywhere you're traveling, or Cleveland.
Yeah.
Even Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, you want to go? There's a beautiful hotel. You talk to the front desk. They're going to arrange your transportation.
Right.
They're not going to do anything stupid. If you want to go look for drugs, you want to go look for problems, I don't want to hear about it.
Exactly.
I've seen some of the great Venn diagrams about at the top it says is Mexico safe. Then it's got all these arrows. Are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? And it says, are you looking for drugs? And everything goes down to, yeah, it's safe. Except for the arrow that says,
Are you looking for
drugs?
It's just like the Vegas Strip.
Yeah, it's it.
Yeah.
You're not looking for drugs.
I was literally going to pick that up. I love that graph. It was like, are you going to pick a fight with the cartel? It's the only one.
Exactly. Well, now, you ever get out to Vegas, Lucas? You ever get out here?
Dude, I've only been a few times.
No, Jesus.
But like quick trip. I know. I got to go. I have too many friends over there and stuff that I got to get to Vegas soon.
Well, when you do, let us know. But back to Ash's description of flying from here to Guadalajara, I think the most stressful part of that whole thing is hitting the button and going green or red.
I know.
Once you get to Guadalajara.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh.
Well, Matt had me nervous going through TSA because he bought these 3-ounce glass flasks, and he put some really good tequila in there. I'm like, you're rolling the dice with American TSA, bringing a liquid through. But we got it through, and that had me a little
I
nervous.
got stopped and everything had to be torn apart and brought apart. But I mean, that's America.
You're
right
on
there,
several
brother.
watch lists.
Yeah, exactly. That's America right there.
Lucas, I know that there's a whole agave movement in California. Any insights? I keep seeing these agave spirits, from California. What are your thoughts?
Look, I mean, I haven't tried the California one, which I need to. And they're up in Sacramento. I want to go down there because I've heard nothing but great things of what they're doing there. And for me, as long as you don't call it tequila or mezcal, I'm all for more agave spirits. You know what I mean? Call it whatever you want. California agave spirits, all that. I'm down to try it. I haven't tried anything from outside of Mexico that I like, but I also think that because it's all new, it's not just the fact that the master distiller maybe is not doing the things. I think it's actually like the yeast and the grounds and how old these distilleries are. All that I think plays a huge part in it. And I think that's why, and I think there are some more controversial spirits like Sotol in Texas and those kinds of things. But with the California one, I need to try it. I need to go over there. I want to see their facility. And but the people that I know that are up in Northern California have nothing but great things to say about the team. And they're also saying, I can't wait until they figure it out. As soon as they get it done, it would be cool to try it.
Yeah, I had one from South Africa, and it was very interesting. I thought, okay, I'll give this a try.
I know it's a stupid question, Lucas, but why can't they call it mezcal? Because there's mezcals coming from all these other countries. So what's the
regions?
Regions.
No,
Yeah.
it's a region.
So
So
we just had a
mezcal,
South African one.
But it's an agave spirit.
Roger. All right.
so mezcal has its own domination of origin as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
And mezcal actually predates, like, honestly, mezcal is more Mexican than tequila is. You know what I mean? Mezcal is what they used to call it 600 years ago, before tequila was even a tequila, when it was back into this vino de mezcal. And then it eventually went to vino mezcal de tequila, and then the Salza family changed it to just tequila. So, yes, there's between 9 or 10 states that can register mezcal in Mexico, and Sinaloa is a state that, for some people, it's included. For some, it's not. It's kind of like iffy. But yeah, it's a very Mexican term and production and all that. And I think that needs to stay in Mexico. But I also believe that any agave spirit that's made in Mexico, regardless if it has its own domination, if it's in the domination of origin of mezcal or not, is a mezcal. You know what I mean? So Bacanora is a mezcal. Raicilla is a mezcal. But that's a tricky subject.
And so kind of going back to what you mentioned prior to this question, are there any brands that you haven't tried and that you are looking forward to trying?
Yeah, there's some. A couple of them are from Cascawin that I haven't tried. I haven't tried Agua Sol, which I love their bottle. And I actually been trying to get friends in Texas, or I reached out to the brand and haven't heard from them. Like, I haven't gone to Texas. Like, I have to go to Texas to buy this one, because as far as I know, they only sell it there. And I haven't tried El Negocio either, which I've heard good things about. It's also made at Cascawin. Yeah, those are the two on the top of my head right now that I'm really trying to get to see if I can try them.
So I just bought a bottle of the El Negocio.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to trying that as well. I got it up on the shelf.
Oh, cool. Let me know what you think. Be quiet. I heard their Joven is pretty good.
Lucas, if you had a really well-made, additive-free tequila for the well at the bar, everyday mixer, what would you have?
Arete.
Arete, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
that
a
was my
summer-
well when I was bartending too. So that's
okay, excellent. Yeah, I've seen Cimarron too. I think Arete or Cimarron would be excellent.
yeah. Especially the we can't beat it at 1 liter bottle. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Love
good.
that.
Yeah, mine would be L Tech, of course.
Oh yeah.
L Tech, of
Their
course.
mixed and I'll do their mixed on the well too all day, no problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple places here that have it on there.
Nice.
On the well, they're pretty good. Yeah. So the scene here in Vegas it's actually good, and it's getting better. I think we've been able to find a lot of stuff and find people that can find little nooks and crannies where, our drinking scene is not as hip as LA's, which is good. I think it's a little more authentic,
Gotcha.
for us here. So we've actually been, and I've been fairly lucky. I still have to reduce the Cuervo a lot, but we've been lucky in some of the places that we've gone out, I think, here.
Nice.
It's probably, so as far as the scene goes in LA, do you have a difficult time getting additive-free stuff in other places besides the one where you worked when you go out on the scene?
Not anymore. Like, to be honest, now I think pretty much every bar will have at least 1 or 2 additive-free options. In LA, I think in LA, I think we're pretty spoiled because we get pretty much everything, and I think we have some of the best agave bars in the world here in LA as well. So, but even if you're going to just a regular restaurant, like a steakhouse or even a dive bar, you're bound to find Ocho or El Tesoro or Arete or something like that on the shelf for sure.
Do you find that the bartenders know? That's my biggest problem here, is the bartenders just don't know. They're not as educated, and I know that Matt and Ash spend a lot of time discussing, trying to educate the bartenders. Are the bartenders in LA as educated as you would like to see them?
I think the industry as a whole, yes, and I think there's a lot of community LA is a huge city, but the bartender scene is such a small industry here in LA. So of course, like it's this. I don't know. I want to say they are, but there is a lot of misinformation that it's given a lot by the brand reps, that come in and say, "Oh yeah, no, my brand is 100% added free." So then the bartenders will say that to the guests as well. So that happens a lot. There's a bar here that's one of my favorite bars called Mirate, which, besides the fact that I'm friends with the beverage director and he just won like number 46, I think, in North America, best bar in North America, and he's a scientist and all that, which is I can go on and on about that. But I think one of my favorite things that he's doing is that every Tuesday or every other Tuesday or something like that, he will hold an event at the restaurant. And usually with the brand owner, like, Jenny Camarena from El Tesoro has been there. Carlos Chava is going to be there next week. Assis Cortez from Dishbe and stuff, the Mezcal, like, usually have these producers or owners or like brand ambassadors come in, and it's a free event for the industry. So he would invite anybody from the industry that wants to come in, have lunch, and learn about tequila. And all he asks is, like, if you're here, bring this product into your bar. And this is how we're going to expand knowledge and quality agave spirits in LA. So I love those kinds of things here in LA that's happening more and more. But of course, there's like regions that are not really into that. And there's going to be some misinformations and bartenders won't know. And I think a lot has to do, again, with the brand ambassadors that are giving false information. But for the most part, I think we're pretty spoiled again in LA.
Yeah, and in that same note, we just went to a tasting on Saturday, and I've been to several. And you listen to the ambassadors, listen to the stuff. I learned more Saturday from that guy. I don't know what it was that made him such a better speaker than all that we've heard everywhere I've been. But what was his name and who did he rep and how did that go?
Chris Simmons, and he does the Tequila Ocho and Vago Mezcal.
Yeah, he was very, very knowledgeable, and that's the type of guy you need out there to get everybody.
That's what I want to do. I want to be a brand ambassador.
Should do it. Yeah. It's something that's so hard for brands,
Yeah, for sure.
It's hard to find a great global brand ambassador.
Lucas, I was going to ask you. You mentioned Mirate in LA. What are some of your other spots? Because I'm always down in the Southern California area. I have friends. I was just down there last week. I mean, it's almost like every other month I'm down in SoCal. What are some of your go-to, for those listening?
Yeah, I mean, Madre is just an incredible place for agave spirits. They're one of the biggest selections of agave spirits in the world as well. They're going to be heavily into mezcal more than tequila. They're going to have some tequila there too, but it's a must go. They have a few locations. They have one in Torrance. They have one in Santa Clarita that they just opened that I haven't been, but apparently it's huge. And then the one on Fairfax in Hollywood. Gracias Madre has, for the most part, a great selection as well. It's a vegan Mexican restaurant. The vegan food is actually good, but the agave spirit is where you want to go.
No such thing. No such thing.
Nativo is really good too. They have a really good selection. They're growing more and more. And then for cocktails, we have the classics like the Varnish that you kind of got to go to when you're in LA. I'm blanking on the name. The Normandy Club is one great spot for cocktails as well.
Have you been to Jones in Hollywood?
No.
I've been there a couple times. I don't remember or recall the tequila, but it was a great spot. Dark little, North Hollywood maybe.
Okay, Jones. I gotta look that up.
Yeah, Jones, not bad. My favorite LA story is probably 1998. I was a baby young cop, but I was like the first chance of getting a week off on vacation, and I drove all the way to LA to hang with friends. And we go into this bar somewhere in Hollywood, and I look down at the end of the bar, and it's Lawrence from The Matrix.
Fishburne.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. At the end of the bar. And I'm like, The Matrix. Furious Styles. From I didn't in the hood.
Yeah, exactly.
The Matrix had just come out. So this had to be like 98.
He was like the biggest star.
Yeah, it was like at the height of his world. So, and of course, I don't want to be the douchebag tourist. So I just asked the bartender, I said, what's Lawrence drinking? And he says, he's drinking this. I said, 1 round on me. And I'll never forget, he poured it for him. He looked down at me and he gave me this little like, thank you. And I said, thank you. Yeah. And that was it. It was like my favorite LA story ever.
There's no way in LA that Furious Styles pays for drinks. You were just the third person in line on that day.
Right.
He is Furious Styles. He is Furious Styles. He doesn't pay for drinks, man. True. That's not his thing.
Well, it's like my Kid Rock story. So I was at the Super Bowl when it was in Dallas, and it was Green Bay and
with the snow.
Yes.
The cold one.
I had just finished a protective detail for the Colombian Minister of Defense and went out afterward after the minister went up, which, by the way, he was already delayed 2 days because of the snow and the ice on the road. Yep. So once he went wheels up, went to the hotel bar that we were staying at, and just were drinking from like noon until 2 a.m. Well, at 1:30, we moved to the upstairs bar where like all of the ESPN crew and all the celebs were at. As literally, it's just like this wave going through the crowd, and these big black bouncer-looking dudes doing EP for Kid Rock make their way through the crowd. He comes up, and at the time I was in the military, so I literally would. When I approached him, I said, "Hey, just want to show my appreciation, everything you do for the troops, all the USO tours, like it's very appreciated." And I was like, "Let me buy you a drink." Let me tell you that this guy bought. I bought like a $250 bourbon.
No way.
For Kid Rock, and I was like, and I was like, okay.
And knowing good and well, all he drinks is Bud Light with the rainbow packaging. That's what he really cared for.
Yeah, but we sat there and we kicked it for like 30 minutes while he drank and I drank, and that's cool. That was my Kid Rock story. You had to take out a second
mortgage, and he laughed at you.
Right. But that's okay though. That's okay though.
Yeah. Lucas, any cool LA celebrity stories on your side?
So I was thinking here. I think the one that came to mind is, so me and my friends go to this pub around like near where I live, just a pub, like just beers, And so we walk in and there's like a small parking lot. And there's like this crazy Lamborghini in the parking lot, and we just looked out of place, So we're like, somebody's here. Like who's driving this? So we get in, we order our beers, we sit down, and then we see a movement at the bar, and we see Oscar De La Hoya, just hammered, just done. And he's like buying people shots at the bar, and then he buys these 2 girls shots. And then that was the most cringe thing ever, that they get the shots to drink it, and he's like, wait. And then he makes them say Golden Boy, and then they all
It probably doesn't take a lot to get him drunk. What's he, 5'1", 112?
Yeah. And he like starts getting out of the car, and he like goes into the Lamborghini. We're like, there's no way this guy's going to drive right now. So my it's literally like, dude, I'm going to call the cops. Like, how is this guy going to drive? And then he like grabs something out of the car, and then like this Escalade shows up out of nowhere, puts him in the car, and they take off.
Good old responsibility.
So at least
there you go, man.
But it was like maybe 2 weeks after that he got caught with the DUI in LA. So
in the Lamborghini,
you were like 9 watts and just following for the rest of
the week. I'm just waiting for it to go down. And you get that a lot here in Vegas.
Yeah.
Obviously, we get celebrities in every 13 minutes.
Right.
But we get a lot of celebrities here pushing their brands.
Yeah.
We got one just moved here and created his brand. Has had on the west side out there, he's had entire bars to push his brand. We get a lot of that brand pushing. And Ash always talks about our nightclub flexes and what the people do where they purchase. That's one of the things that makes it difficult here for some of these lesser known, additive free, brands to get in, because people are so focused on flexing with their $2,000 bottle of blank at the club with such and such, promoter for it. That's one of the things that makes it difficult. But once we get away from the strip and we get to our little neighborhood mom and pop places and our downtown places and around here, we do pretty good. But that strip is going to be untouchable.
Yeah, when I hear it's pretty good stuff. The casinos too, right? Like even for brands to get into the casinos, they say it's pretty hard. Yeah, it's a hard market. But I think, not to name brands, but I feel like that's why I'm excited to see where Volcán de Mi Tierra goes, because they're going for that market, but with a great product. So hopefully that.
Who is good?
Volcán de Mi Tierra.
Yeah.
That, and I think Cierto is also
exactly,
trying to niche their way into that market as well.
Right.
I'm telling you, G4 could do it. G4 could do it. If they're selling it at Costco, they can sell it at Hakkasan.
They'd have to have like some crazy bottle design. You got to be able to stick a sparkler on the end of it. That's the whole thing.
Either that or some billionaire has to come in and say, look, this is what I want at my table. Get it for me.
Yeah.
And then that's when they'll start carrying it.
That's true.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So give us one more good thing here, Lucas, before we wind it down.
Yeah.
One more good thing of how you see it going and how you see it growing.
I see. One more good thing in the industry kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that, we're getting a lot of good brands. I think we're seeing how there is a way to make good tequila without the use of additives or shortcuts. And I think, like we were talking before in the beginning, the rise of the additive-free movement is making brands go the additive-free route, right? Like brands like we just talked about, Volcán de Mi Tierra and Cierto, who are going the additive-free route, even in that tall, pretty bottle look. And I think another thing that's happening in the tequila world too, because of that, because the market is saturated, brands are trying to find a ways to stand out, and we're getting some delicious tequila out of it. Even like the Cascanes Rosa, that was a delicious Rosa bottle that I loved. And what Montagave is doing now, they're like fermenting in the cement eggs, which is like a very wine way to ferment. And we don't even know what we're going to get because nobody has ever done that. So I think it's like this ways to innovate but still keep traditional. I think we're just going to win from that because we're going to get to try some delicious stuff, which is great.
That's good. That's good. What you got, Ash?
Well, I mean, it's always for me. It's like we have these amazing tequilas, and they're the artistry that goes into it, the labor, and then social media. I always feel like social media. We always debate on social media here, where we have to feed the algorithm. You have to. It's not really about quality; it's about quantity.
Right.
It almost it's like the whole thing is set up to corporate reward. It's kind of like the Cuervos and the Casa Dragones. It's just agave Everclear that's been watered down and added to. What are your thoughts on social media? I'm an erudite in a way. I'm like, I think technology is going to destroy it all in the end.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, didn't we all watch Terminator? Shouldn't we be riding in front of?
We've seen this before, son.
Shouldn't we be burning? Shouldn't we be burning down the chip makers? But no, we're all full steam ahead. How do you see social media and I guess the smaller brands? I guess they have to use it to compete.
Yeah, exactly. And of course I'm in the bias side since this is my job, but I'm not blind to the negative effects of social media. I think one of the things that bothers me the most is the amount of misinformation that happens within agave spirits. And, people that just want to put content out there and don't really research. I think it's a huge thing for me. And but I think it's at the same time, it's good. It's like how you get the word out there. I think, the marketing side of things it's working, and it's getting the word out there. And I think it be something also that we can put good information out there. I think without social media, I don't know if the additive-free movement would be as big as it is. I think without social media, I don't know if Fortaleza will be the goal following that they have right now. You know what I mean? So there's some good things that are happening within social media, but I think it's something that we all have to be super careful about. And I think now, I just have this feeling that we're going to see this flood of misinformation and claims of additive-free without any back support and behind it, like Tequila Matchmaker does. And that's a little scary. So we'll see where that'll then go. And I think also this blind marketing. I think a huge part for me is like I'm over here asking brands to be transparent. And then when I'm working with the brand, I'm not transparent. And I'm just a hypocrite in the sense of like, I'm not telling you, you know what I mean? Telling you that I'm working with the brand shouldn't hinder my credibility or help the credibility. I think it should just stay where it is. And I see a lot of marketing that's not being transparent, and that can be a little dangerous too.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have come across you. And then I turned these two on to like Tequila, and then I'm like, hey, did you guys know about this? And he's like, what? And so here we are today. I mean, so it's that love-hate relationship, but
Right.
yeah.
And then it was just like a rabbit hole at that point. You know, you go down and like you said, you become passionate about it. You become so engulfed in it that, you know, right. you want to spread the word. You want to, you know, make sure that everybody knows know what you're drinking. Like,
exactly.
You know what you're putting into your body. Even though you're putting, you know, alcohol into your body, know that at least it's additive free as opposed to all this other stuff that they're putting into it.
And I think that's exactly what it comes down to it, right? Like, there's always going to be additives. There's always going to be big brands and small brands. It's just, you should know what you're drinking so you can make the decision on what you want to drink. And I think it's way too hard for people like us that want to know that to get information that's true or not.
And it's kind of a cross between what you're saying, Lucas, and what Matt's saying about the fear of misinformation. And Matt talks about going down rabbit holes, and that's just it. I mean, that's what's in rabbit holes, right? Shit. They're full of shit in the end. And as you continue, the deeper you go into them, the more shit you're going to have to crawl through. And we're going to have to work to try and, you know, work around some of that shit that's down these rabbit holes that we're just now starting to go down into some of this making. So it's the fear of all that shit in these that we have to climb around. And it's only going to get worse because the more the bigger brands start to recognize and go towards that, then the more shit we're going to get. Well, it's going to get worse.
But it's always like, I always remember what you would say, Lucas. You always say, drink what you like.
Right.
And I think that, you know, what I find, like today, I'm walking out of Costco today here in Las Vegas. I had to run, get a script. And anytime I walk into Costco, I'm like, let's go see if there's how much G4 is left because, you know, if they got it, I walk by, there's about 3 cases. Let me grab a bottle. I'm here. It's $34. How can I not?
Smokey. That's crazy. $34 for G4 at Costco.
Yeah, I know. It's so insane. So I buy a bottle, I get my script, I'm walking out, and a woman with her son, she was a little bit older, very nice lady. She walks by, and I'm just holding the bottle. I didn't buy anything else. And she's like, that's a good tequila. I go, this is a damn good tequila. So the word is spreading I'm in the store. I know when Matt goes to the store, when we're in there, someone picks up the bottle of, no. Hey, can I have a podcast. I'm sort of an expert. Can I talk to you for a minute? You know, it's like, they're like, yeah. Or you go to the big box store, you know, and they're like, it's 50,000 bottles and they're overwhelmed with the selection.
Right.
I'm like, hey, it looks like you need a little help. And you don't want to talk to the clerk because the clerk is just going to sell you the Spirits Direct garbage.
Right.
What, you know, sipping or mixing. Oh, I'm looking to sip. Okay, here's dark. You know, what do you like? And so those little micro, that's the movement. That's like, when we're in the liquor store, when we're walking through Costco and they grab the Cristalino of the Kirkland brand, I'm like, Kirkland's okay usually, but let me show you this one over here, and it's about the same price. That's, I think, it's in that micro nano level of that face-to-face conversation where that's where the movement like moves the dial, I guess is what I'm saying.
I actually pulled my first ash pack today at the liquor store.
What?
And I was in there. You guys know. I spent the whole day, Lucas, trying to find a bottle of
Art Nom.
Yeah, today. So I'll go to 2 big box liquor stores here, and I'm getting frustrated. I'm pissed because normally I like, you know, I'm not nearly as versed in all of the different additive-free brands. But when I know something, that's what I want. So today I put my first ash pack, and I'm in Lee's Liquor on Las Vegas Boulevard, right between Windmill and Silverado Ranch, and it's a person in there looking for tequila, and they go to pick for something, and I'm looking around for my Art Gnome, and I'm like, one more. He's like, this one, one more. He's like, this one, one more. He's like, this Don Fulano? I said, Don Fulano, brother. He's like, thank you, sir. And walked out. It's the first time ever leading somebody in the store to try and make a good decision. I was like, no, one more. I didn't want to piss off the teller. Because he was looking up stuff for me, but I was like, no, not that one. Keep going. Keep going. Till you get to the good shit.
So with that, outside of the brands that you work with, what would be your top 5?
Man, that's top 5 is tough. I'll give you like a top 5 ever. Maybe I think it would be Casca Wing Aniversario. Lot 100 would be Fortaleza. Lot 100 would be there. Siempre Valles Ancestral. Calle 23 Criollo. And man, probably that Fuente Seca 2018 because I haven't had the 2013, and I've heard it's incredible.
2013 is amazing. I just had it. I just had it recently in Reno. If you're ever up in the Reno area, you got to go to Death and
What the
Taxes.
hell's the LA guy doing in Reno, son?
Listen, for the 2013, I might
Hey,
go.
you want to go to Tahoe?
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
that's right.
fair.
Yeah.
So if you're ever up there, go to Death and Taxes. It's a great mixology cocktail bar. All of their additive-free tequilas. That's all they have is additive-free.
Nice.
They only want, and they have a 2013.
Nice.
And literally that's what I sipped on the night that I was there. I was like, nope, that's the only one I don't want.
That's awesome.
And one last before we roll, shout out to where we were Saturday. It was called the
Todo Bien.
Todo Bien.
Man. They had a good selection here. I'd never been on Commons before.
Yeah.
Had a good sandwich. The food was good.
Shout out to Tommy, Las Vegas Agave.
Tommy, of course.
Sin City Agave.
Nice.
Yeah, that added. I'd liked Uncommons. I've never been there before.
Yeah, it's a good spot. I've had some complaints,
You've
but
had
the
that experience.
Total Bien.
You don't like the rules and regulations.
I don't. I'm a punk rock cop, so what can I say?
Yeah, it was good. I really liked Todo Bien. I would go there again, and I would go to that other place right across the way from it again on the inside.
Yeah,
stuff.
they're in they got their growing pains going. They just got to work it out.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, you remember when what's the name with the Mexican spot that we used to go to all the time? It's right down from Boca Park. They had their growing pains.
Oh, El Dorado?
Yeah, but what's the name
Tivoli.
of it? Tivoli.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of Tivoli when Tivoli first started out. All these nice little places in it. They're still growing. They're still coming up. They came up at the same time as Durango, which gets all the customers there. It reminds me of Tivoli. Yep.
Nice.
Well, Lucas, we thank you for your time, and we're big fans, and anytime you're in Vegas, please look us up. We will definitely go out and have a tequila with you for sure.
We're not worthy.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you. It's always awesome talking to Gavin. This has been great. Appreciate you having me.
All right,
anytime.
We'll have you again, brother.
Yeah, where can people find you?
So just at the Lucas Assis on all social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. That's where you can find me. If you want to have any questions, if you want to do any tastings or events like that, just email me at lucasassis.com. I'm sorry, lucasassis@me.com. And that's it.
Awesome,
right, brother. Thanks a lot,
ladies and
man.
gentlemen. Lucas Assis, one of the goats. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
All right.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.